Today we'll be diving into strategizing our film for the festivals. We have the award-winning Film Festival Strategist, Dr. Rebekah Louisa Smith, who is the CEO and founder of the Film Festival Doctor. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, and I'm so excited to dive into film festivals. You know, once you get your film, ultimately you want to take it to the next level and get possibly awards or maybe some people just seeing it that may not have a chance to see the film. So this is going to be exciting to really talk about what makes a good film festival, what's a good film festival to be in, how do you prep your film to the festival. So I'm really excited to get into that. But let's start with, what was your drive to becoming the Film Festival Doctor?
So it all kind of happened by accident in the best possible way. So I was studying for my PhD at the University of Wales in Aberystwyth. This was back in 2008. And I enjoyed academia, but I knew it wasn't quite my passion or what I was really wanting to do for the rest of my life. But I thought I'm going to carry on with it and just, I'm going to just go with it. And then halfway through, I was asked to produce a film festival, co-produce a film festival, which is called the Abertoir Horror Festival in Wales. It took place in the same area as the university. And I said, well, yeah, why not? It's something to do because I'm just, it's a very time-consuming job doing a PhD. I need some different interaction. And I thought this would be a good hobby. And that hobby was finding my why and my sole purpose, and that I loved producing film festivals. And then when I was doing that job, I always started talking to filmmakers. I loved to hear more about, what they liked and disliked about film festivals. And they all said the same thing. They said, we love film festivals, but there's nobody we can actually turn to help us get our films into festivals. We're just, hoping for the best and spray and pray. Or at that point in time, it was Without a Box, which is now finished, but we're just hoping for the best and seeing what happens. But I'd like to talk to somebody to help me get into festivals. And I was like, oh, I think I can do this because people need help here. I'm learning the circuit really well now. I'm going to the festivals to pick up films, seeing how they work and how different this all is. It's going to be a big thing to do, but I know I can do it because I'm supposed to be doing this. And then people said to me, this will be a really good service if you can get it off the ground. I was like, I will, because really is a huge market for this that is definitely untapped. There was one company at the time doing it who doesn't do it now. Had a really good book that helped and was brilliant and very good first, good step to building that model. And I was like, this needs to be, an integral part of a film producer's team when it comes to getting their film distribution and exposure.
Yes, people need help because I think film festivals are daunting. One is, well, which festival should I submit my film to?
Yeah.
The costs, not everybody's thinking about that. Some are very expensive to get into, especially the higher tier ones, which we'll talk about in a second. Walk me through your process of how you work with filmmakers and getting their films into festivals.
So the first thing we have to do is watch the film and give it an analysis and analyze specifically its film festival potential. Because obviously some people, as they're new to this, they don't quite know if they've made a festival film that will be well received or not. So we give a very constructive critique and feedback coming from the point of view of film festival programmers. Me and my colleague Sheila, she also is a festival programmer. She's over in Canada. And we give it that perspective to give a more, honest assessment, because other parts of the film industry watch films differently. Festival programmers watch films very differently. To say how a sales agent would, distribution companies and friends and family in the USPS driver, obviously. So we come from that perspective, which is very specific. So a lot of festival programmers think about a lot of things when they're watching films. It can be, will this fit our theme? Will this, tick the box for the investor? Will this tick the box for HR? Will this be a really good showcase for the audience? Can it fit what their taste is? There's many things that go through than just do they like it. That's what we take into account. So if the filmmaker is happy with the kind of level and tier of festivals that the film can potentially get selected for, then we can work with them. And the next step will be creating their whole festival campaign. So it's going to be taking a couple of weeks to put together a very targeted list of festivals. And that strategy is based upon our knowledge of the festival's taste, how they program their audiences, what kinds of quality level of films they screen, and where best to place a particular film.
So do you have any strategies for getting your film into festivals, like a couple things somebody should think about when they're looking into submitting their film to a festival?
They need to know what the festival wants. My little motto is know your film, know your festivals. So you need to kind of know what kind of film you've made here. So as you're aware, is that this whole process of making a film can take a long, long time, and a lot of emotions can be attached to it. And it's important to step back and see the film as a product. You've made it, could have taken 5 months, 5 years, or 5 weeks, or whatever, but you've made it, and now it's a product to get out to festivals and distribution, which is a whole new different world. So it's important to know your film and then know your festivals. So what kinds of festivals screen your kind of movie? So it's a good example. So if you've got a film that, say, is a good horror feature film, let's say, it doesn't break any new boundaries or push any new codes and conventions. It does a pretty good job of doing what the horror audience would love. And it has a star in that's not, say, A-list, but, a good B-list celebrity that has a following. Then definitely approach all the higher end genre film festivals. If it can travel, meaning can it, break outside of its niche in terms of its country, then go to festivals outside of your hometown. That's one example. And then think about, can this genre film, if it crosses, if it really pushes the boundaries of narrative storytelling for genre, can we go into a more general festival that is not horror genre specific? In that example's case, the answer was no. But look at things like The Babadook. Look how that broke out of its, the horror niche and went into the more general festivals like Tribeca. What is it doing differently? So it's important to know the film and the festivals. So researching is key. A lot of filmmakers can get excited and the film's really good, and then go and spray all over and pray for the top tier and Oscar-qualified festivals. But some of those will not be the right fit. For example, in the Palace, which is a brilliant Oscar-qualified festival in Bulgaria, they screen a lot of, heavy dramas and depressing but extremely well-made dramas and television episodics. They don't really do comedy, in films that are lighthearted. It's more deeper than that and more rough. So, that's not going to be the right match. Oberhausen is a great festival, but it's experimental, avant-garde. So it's important to look at the fine details. The festival tells you in their mission statement what they want, and also a way to know what they want, looking at the previous winners, who won, and what kind of films won. What countries were they from? Was it an equal mix of male, female, black, white, whatever? Just look at those patterns. Look at the patterns, look at the nuances is a key thing to do. Then right, my films are going to be in that one, but definitely this one. So the Valley Film Festival is a great local festival in LA, obviously. And they love films that are all shot in, the valleys and love letters to LA, because that's what the audience is about. So that's a good start. If your film is, very positive about LA, it's got an audience for it there.
Oh, that's a good tip. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
And also, what about mixed genres, like comedy horror? Could you submit your comedy horror to a comedy film festival and a horror, or is it kind of too mixed? It may not be appreciated.
So the answer would be possibly. So the good way to kind of unravel that is, say, the Sitges Film Festival. That's the biggest genre film festival in the world. It takes place in beautiful Spain at the end of the year in October. We had a film there this year that did really well, and they have themes, and they do have a comedy horror theme. So the answer will be yes, but there'll be some that might not have a comedy genre theme, and it will be maybe a bit of a tougher sell. And the same with comedy festivals. Are they just a mixed bag, and they have a couple of really good comedy horrors, or do they have an actual specific program for comedy horror? So it's important, again, doing the research, looking at the programs, looking at the previous programs. It takes a bit of time to do this. It's not a quick 2-second job, but it will be worth it when you look at it more thoroughly. Another thing to think about too is geography. So, local festivals to you will be a good place to look at first. Sometimes it's always good if you can't travel very far, but it's going to be all out, then look more deeper. Just allow the time to research properly and not cut corners, because festivals is very specific. every festival is different in terms of how they program, who their audience is, how they communicate with you, how they use certain terminology. For example, sometimes festivals will say you've got an honorary mention, and then you go, so I'm in the festival, but that means you're not in the festival. But some festivals, it means you won an award. You just don't win the top prize. So it's important to treat each one with a holistic and bespoke approach, because they're not all the same. There's no rule book for them to follow where they can just like look at it and then be like, right, we'll do our festival in this way, and it's a plan. They make up their own rules.
That's interesting. What do you think are the biggest mistakes filmmakers make in entering film festivals?
Biggest mistake is no strategy.
Right.
That's the biggest mistake. It's just like, throwing it out there and not knowing what the festival wants. That can waste thousands. And I see it happen a lot, which you don't want to do. That's a big mistake. But also another thing that can be a massive mistake is not knowing what they want and having no goals. So you made this film, whether it be a feature or a short, for a reason. Why did you make it? And how do you want festivals to help you? So to kind of break that down is a lot of people who make short films, a lot of the time it can be to get exposure for being, getting more work as a director, a writer, or if people on the team, the actors involved, it's kind of like a virtual business card, you could say. But some make shorts for a specific reason, because they want to go down the route of the Oscars, the BAFTAs, BIFA, etc., the British Independent Film Awards. They're making them for a reason. They're there to make more of an impact and go up another level. So it's important to know like why you've made it. And then you think about, what festivals you want to help you. So if you don't know what you want and you end up doing like aimless kind of like submitting, you won't get any results, the ones you want, because you don't know what you're going to want. So it's very important to know exactly in the beginning, what do I want from this process? It's going to be time consuming and expensive. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's not like a case of submit the next day you're told if you're in or not. It takes a while for things to come together. So patience is one thing, and letting go of a desired outcome that you want, which might be the one you expect, and get something better for the festival.
Is there a time limit from when you make the film to how long you have to submit it? Like, is it within the year? Like if somebody made a film 5 years ago and they never submitted it, is it okay to submit it? Or is there like, no, you made that 5 years ago, you can't submit it again?
So if you made the film 5 years ago and it's been not seen anywhere, any festivals or no submissions, then you can then begin festivals. You maybe just want to change the completion date, even though it was made then officially. You've kind of finished it then to start festivals, say 2023. So you can do that. It needs to make sure the golden rule is that it's had no previous festival exposure in, like, let's say 5 years ago, you got 20, whatever year that would be, 20 what? I don't know what that would be.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's like 5 years ago is what were we now? Like
2018. 2018.
2018. Well, I'm not on the good with maths. Festivals, yes. Maths, no. So that would be, fine, because it's not seen any festivals then, no submissions have been done, no one's seen it. It's pretty much like still, a blank slate. So that's okay. The worst, though, is if you were to send it to some festivals and it got screened at a couple in 2018, it'd be way too old. So it's important just to change the completion date really, because it's pretty much brand new. For shorts and features, it differs. So let's say you finished the film in 2020, and would have been obviously a lot of online festivals then. If it's still in 2020 and it's a short, you technically have 2 years to tour the circuit. With a feature, it's a bit different. You could do that long, but if you get a sales agent who starts selling it and you get distribution and along the way, it could make that life shorter. So I have a really good feature film right now from South Africa called Headspace. It's a children's feature. It's doing really well. And we got, we're getting festivals for it, but some we can't partake in because the sales agent's done a fantastic job of selling it to a lot of territories around the world. And he got into the Italian Black Nights Festival for the kids' sidebar festival, which was incredible to get into. But they said, look, no, it's getting released on this day. We're not going to change the release date around the festival, so you can't have it. So they said no. Other ones have been like, okay, this will be really good exposure for the film. So yes, we'll definitely screen it at that festival and release it, after that. Some territories are fine, it's not sold. So it's a lot more strategic when you have sales deals confirmed or release dates. So you have to be ahead. So every time that we get an invite for that film, we have to check in the sales agent if we can do it or not. And it's up to them to give permission because they own the rights. Well, the distributor does. So they're the one selling it. The distribution company is the one that owns the rights. With the short, it is more flexible and there's a bit more control. And also with distribution for shorts, at the time, deals can be non-exclusive, which is nice because that means you've got more flexibility to travel the circuit more and not have any tied into having just have it in one place. There is more maneuver, I suppose. But the key thing is when the film is finished, you want to get going to festivals, make sure the completion date is not the shooting date. You might have shot it in 2010 and you finished it 2020, but you finished it 2020. You did not finish in 2010. People are saying it's a 2010 date because we began filming then. And I was like, doesn't matter. You finished it in 2020. So that's when you have to put it down as the finish date. But that's important as well. And to update your IMDb, make sure the IMDb is in alignment with your Film Freeway and other festival submission platform profiles, that it has the correct completion date.
Oh, that's a good tip because a lot of times we can put up the IMDb during the filming,
yeah,
and not correct it for when we're submitting it and when it's actually finished. Because sometimes you can complete something and then you have to do reshoots, and then it's 2 years later that you're actually finished.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, when we're talking about feature films and then we're talking about short films, I know, like you had mentioned with short films, a lot of times it's just touting yourself as a director or writer. Here's a short piece that I can showcase my work and what I can do. For features, do you feel like features is more about the distribution, trying to get the distribution deal?
Yeah, sometimes that tends to be a big goal, is distribution. A lot of the time it can be trying to find distribution leads at festivals, or connecting with the right people that can help with that. It's rare that you find someone who's distribution company looking at festivals to find the films. They can find it other ways. It's only about the connections. So the Valley Film Festival is a good example again, because they actually have a little distribution market and they have a lot of people attend who are good distribution companies. They're looking for indie film. So the deals are kind of different to say the big massive distribution companies like Netflix, because obviously they look for a different kind of product, but they can help with that. There's also some of the festivals too, which have connections with sales agents and will send films to them, feature films, if the filmmaker wants to. So some of them can help. It's again doing the research, but yeah, a big goal overall for feature films is always to get distribution or a sales agent.
Okay. And then do people ever go to film festivals, don't have their film in it, but they know that they can network and talk to people that could, buy their film, and then they bring a copy of it? Is that something that people could do? Or nah, don't do that?
Well, I've seen that happen a few times. It's not the most common thing, but normally what people do who have a feature film that's completed and want to, make new connections in the world of sales and distribution. I know, not always let me give the link of the film on a USB or a DVD. It's a bit old school now.
Right.
Very old school. Is what they tend to do is they like to either go to the American film market in Santa Monica, which just finished a few weeks ago, and then make connections there, and then give the film to people to watch and potentially sell. Also, what they tend to do is they'll go to, say, local festivals that have a good industry turnout, and then be a delegate and say, I've got a finished film, it's just been completed, looking down to make connections and network. That's what festivals are for. So that's totally normal. A lot of that will happen though in local to them, in LA or New York, for example, and here in Dallas, where I am, in a Dallas Film Festival, has those connections too with sales agents and attendants with their films that they have at the festival. So yes, but again, it's not the most common. Normally people go to festivals with the film.
Okay. Yeah. Because it's kind of expensive to go, I think, just to go.
It adds up. It really can add up. I travel a lot to festivals. I travel a lot around the US now. But it can add up quite a bit, actually. And then you end up spending more because you got to, cover the cost of accommodation, but getting around and food, drink. And obviously, every state is different. Every country is different with the prices. It's cheap in South Africa, but it's not cheap in Tribeca, New York. So the difference in price.
Yeah. So what do you think are the 6 most common reasons films are not selected for film festivals?
So 6 main reasons they're not selected would be technical things as one to go on to start. the thing that drives me mad when I was a programmer, and it still drives me mad now, is bad sound mix and just, pretty much bad sound engineering. Having like a wonky sound mix or bad Foley. Festival programmers of a high tier can notice that. And it's a common thing, very common with short films, because they're new to it and might not realize the problems with the sound, where it needs fixing or it's not as obvious to them as it could be. Sometimes it can be subtle, but it's just like, that's not working well. And it's not just the headphones. It's like just the sound needs a better design and engineering. So I see that a lot, or the sound mix, etc. So that's a big thing. Obviously, some festivals can forgive these things, I'm going to say, but the top tier take, everything's got to be a strong execution. That has to be, everything has to be in a very alignment and almost say perfect. Bad acting. I mean, that can be very obvious sometimes, or sometimes it can be just one or two people don't do as good performance as someone else, or another ensemble. But that can be a big thing too, because sometimes it can drain the energy of the film down and not bring it up the right level. Another thing is a bad script. Sometimes that's very obvious if it's not well written and the dialogue's bad, is number, say, 4. But people can tell of the high level festivals, especially issues with the script, with just with things happening too quickly or not enough character development. If it's a drama, so those things are what they look for. They know what the drama is going to be when they start sitting down for the first 5-10 minutes, and they can see where it's going if it's not got any better. And it's going to mean, not the top tier, but some might forgive it because they can see the heart's in the right place. There's problems with the whole script. It needs to be more work to develop those key points. Number 5 would definitely be overly long running time. I mean, this is my fun part now to say, but I love this debunking this myth. It gets me so excited. But there is this rumor, people, I think it's 2014, 2013 it began, it was like, have to make your film 15 minutes. I was like, why does it have to be 15 minutes? And they said, because that's the length to get it into festivals. When that is not true. Your film needs to be the length it needs to be. It could be 16, 15, 20, 21, 8, 4, 6, 30, or 40. Don't get attached to a number. The same with a feature. It needs to be 90 minutes. It might have to be 90 minutes, or it could be longer than that, or shorter. An hour 40, an hour 25, an hour 20 with credits. Don't attach yourself to numbers. But sometimes, though, a lot of the time, films can come in that are a bit too long, or the pacing's bad. So it's really important to get an editor to kill the darlings and literally be like, rein it in and not take any prisoners, or have these shots that don't make any sense for the narrative. With a short, it's get into the action quickly, get things moving, so that we can get, to the story and there's no repetition. Sometimes they can be too long because they're saying the same thing, but different words are already being repeated. And with a feature, but it comes a lot with a short. So it needs to justify its running time. If it's half an hour, it needs to be half an hour. Great. I had one film where the director said, right, it's half an hour, but, when I get onto these festivals, let's make a 15-minute version. I said, here we go again. But I said, look, the 15-minute version takes away all the emotional impact in the story. And he was like, ugh. And then after waiting patiently, eventually they all came in for the half an hour one, including Rebekah, so then he was like, okay, let's stick with the half an hour version, So it wasn't better at all. But, it just needs to be half an hour because the story arc, was well developed. So it's important to not attach yourself to numbers, but do make sure you've got an editor that can see it very objectively and clearly, and make sure that the pacing is strong, there's no dead air, and everything is the length it needs to be to tell the story and really engage us. And that might be 15 minutes, but it could be shorter or less. That's a big thing. And number 6 would be poor execution. So that's the biggest one. So it's kind of overall, there could be some really good things, like a nice strong performance from the lead, but other people are not as strong as him. He has to carry the whole thing. And then it's just, it could be a bit sloppy editing here and there. It's just not a fully rounded piece. It could have been rushed too much or run out of money, maybe things like that. But that's a big thing, is execution is what festivals look for, is to be innovative and different, professional and strong. So it needs to make sure that everyone's put in the work they need to put in and done it really thoroughly. So that would be the key things I'd say that we see a lot. So that would be, poor sound mix, bad acting, overly long, bad script, bad dialogue, and then over execution being subpar.
Oh my God, those are great tips. Yeah. I was watching a film once, like I was watching a film, and I was thinking, and it felt like it was coming to the end. I was like, okay, this is the end. And then it had 20 more minutes after that. And I was like, oh my God, you should have ended it there or taken that piece and moved it to the end, because I thought it was the end. Yeah, I think that's a big one, is all of them are bad acting. The script isn't very good, or you watch the film and you're left going, I don't know what this is about. I don't know what this is about.
Yeah, it's really important. If you're going to make a drama that's a short or a feature, whatever it's going to be, it needs to be to make an impact. And that is a strong script, strong dialogue, really well made, and obviously strong acting. And then that becomes another level. By the time you can see in shorts like, community theatre acting level, they need to be another level up that where it's really human. An amazing film I work on called Man-Made actually just won quite a few awards at the festival circuit at really good festivals. And that, is a powerful piece of work. The performances feel so real. Like there's no script, It just feels like there's no script, but it's that natural. If there's some people it can be obvious a bit awkward, then it's not going to go very far. You've got to keep leveling up. But it does also mean having a team that can help with this and doing lots of preparation. But when 20 minutes longer means it's way too long. Kind of Lord of the Rings at the end of Lord of the Rings Part 3, but then you seeing an indie film like that, it can, when it just doesn't end and it just goes around in circles and no resolution, and there's no, it's saying the same thing in different words. It means there's no impact. So it's important, you're going to tell a story that it really has been well developed and rehearsed to put those elements together on the same page.
Yes. And I think going back to script writing, I think sometimes I've found that, first-time writer directors or writers, they'll just have a couple versions of their script. And I just always think, no, you've got to have it's like 20 versions, because the first version is never, or the third is not the one you shoot. You should really dive deeper and deeper and deeper, because sometimes I think a lot of films are some of the first time is more surface level. It feels like they don't really go deeper. They're just kind of flat lining, I feel.
Exactly. No, exactly. You're right. Going deeper is the key thing that will get into, very prestigious festivals, because it's doing something that hasn't really been done before, to go to that level and to show something that a different kind of world, and a different world to get into that is really engaging. So yeah, it's going deeper and deeper, the better. The surface is not enough. Deeper and deeper is a memorable short. The surface is a throwaway short film. You forget all about it. Deeper and deeper and deeper is one that will, make an impact. It's I have a film called Father's Day from South Africa, which is fantastic. And that lead actor is a young child actor, always going to be a superstar, but it leaves an emotional punch, because, he's got the whole team around him, are really good actors, but he is flawless, and the script is strong because it comes from an emotional kind of point of view from the director. It's this personal story, personal thing, but it comes with heart and loads of love, and, blows people away, so it's all those key elements and being that forgettable.
I know. It's always nice when you're watching a film and you don't realize you're watching a film. You're
Exactly.
so in it to the end. And then sometimes where it's like, oh my God, it's over? I want it to keep going. I'm loving this, so that's good. And also in script writing, I've noticed too, you don't have to say everything. You don't have to tell us in dialogue. Show us. And also in acting, you don't need to, you can emote some things with just the look instead of these, kind of cliche things that you do, or getting angry at everything. Sometimes we don't, it's more internal anger versus external,
Exactly. With comedy, it's important. It's a lived in kind of performance, and it's from the heart. It's, it really is authentic than, being on the surface where it's no experience for the character, or it's just not really gonna work.
Right. Yeah. So, what are some tips on mindset when navigating the world of festivals?
Mindset's really important. So I mentioned earlier in the conversation about letting go. And it's important to not attach yourself to having one kind of festival that you want to get into. Be open and explore other festivals that are going to be presented to you and explore them and enjoy them. It's really important to do that in this whole process. Also, it's important to not keep looking at your Film Freeway account. So for those that don't know, Film Freeway is a platform where you can submit your film to festivals. There are other platforms than Film Freeway. There's a couple of other ones. Film Freeway dominates because a lot of festivals are on there. So you're going to be using Film Freeway if you start doing a festival submission. It's going to happen. There are other ones like Short Film Depot and Fest Home, for example. But that one is the one that has a lot of festivals and does dominate. So it's important that you don't look at Film Freeway with your notification dates approaching box every day, because that is not the gospel truth. Some festivals will tell you in advance of the notification date via email or via phone, or they'll tell you on the day that they say. Some will tell you after that date. Some will tell you after the festival's finished that you didn't get in. Some will not tell you at all. So it's really important to say, right, by midnight tonight, I'm going to hear back from these festivals. Not true. They all work differently, as I mentioned earlier. So really try to ignore that and try and forget about the film on the festival circuit if you can do something else, and not get attached to desired outcomes or thinking of the festival all day 24/7, and instead really getting like some kind of emotional freedom from that, because it can really affect your mindset. Because if you start, getting worried people don't like the film when you get your first no, it can open up a can of worms. So it's best to really, literally ignore everything and just let go, and just whatever comes in, comes in. Focus on something else. Don't put your whole energy and attention into your festival notifications approaching or what might be coming up. It's unhealthy nowadays to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And on that, how should filmmakers handle rejection letters from festivals?
So one thing to remember is rejection, although it says no, it doesn't mean we don't like you or your film. So don't take it personally. One of my colleagues and friends of mine, she said it's like, oh, it's a bad review. Well, not necessarily a bad review. That's a good thing she pointed that out, actually, in my ebook about that. But I was like, no, it just means they couldn't find a space for it, or they didn't like it, or they loved it, but there was no room, or it's not going to be the right fit for the theme this year, or they might reach out to you and give you a discount code to submit to next year because they really liked it a lot. So you really, because you don't know, I think it makes it worse because you just think, oh, my judges didn't like it, they hated it. I had a film that had a projections came in, and I was thinking maybe we need to tweak the strategy a little bit. But I actually thought, I'll leave it be because I'm convinced it's going to get something. It's just going to be, it's acquired taste. And then it all came in, the stuff. Dribs and drabs, but it came in. And there's other festivals that said no. I just said to them, could you tell me why? Because obviously I work with them, with festivals, their contacts of mine. I said, oh, was manicure not your cup of tea? It was called manicure. And then she said, no, we loved it. But, it's a horror, but also there's a lot of psychological thriller. We don't do much of that now. So it's just it's a hard one to place in the theme right now. I said, oh, we really liked it. And there was one that said it wasn't quite resonating with the themes for me, so one is different. But we said we could certainly tell it's a very well-made film, it's going to do well, So rejection does not mean we don't like you or your film, as I said earlier, but it's important to take it personally. If you start taking things personally, that's going to be a recipe for disaster. So take it as, okay, it just wasn't going to quite work for the festival, whether they like it or not. On to the next one.
Yeah, I like that. And then not all festivals will give you a formal letter, as you've said. Do you think that it's good for the filmmaker if they're not selected? Should a filmmaker go and get more closure, maybe reaching out and asking the why?
There are some festivals that are open to that. Some of them do state on their rules and regulations that they do not give feedback because they haven't got the time. They move on to the next one. They haven't got the time. It's simple as that. They're not going to have not enough staff and resources or bandwidth. And also, if everyone started asking them that, they have thousands of submissions, it could be a lot of time to get back to them and not being able to get back to them and justify why. Some will Some of them offer a service where they can give feedback included, which you pay a bit extra for, but it's worth it. Some will openly give you feedback. They're the more smaller ones, though. When I say smaller ones, that maybe not massive big ones that get loads of entries, but some will, and give you detailed feedback. But then it can be the response of the filmmaker that might put them off to do that, because some can be like, when I worked at Abattoir, we gave this like rejection to somebody. They sent a really nice email and said, thank you for submitting. Fortunately, you didn't get in, but do keep sending your work your way. Just a very polite email. And they came back with effing and blinding, like all that kind of professional stuff. And we were like, whoa. So some of them are scared to do that because it's like, giving them honest feedback could be, a bit too much of a shock. Or some can take it and they don't take offense to it, or they don't take it personally. So I would, before doing that, it's not going to be no festivals do it. Some do, some don't. They're all different. But look at their rules and regulations. If they say do not give feedback, don't ask. They're going to give it, so make an exception. If they don't state that, it's worth asking. And they can maybe share the notes from Film Freeway screeners and tell you what they all thought.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Like you just mentioned, I have heard that too, where you pay an extra fee and then you can get some feedback. And sometimes getting the harsh perspective, sometimes it may not, like you were saying about one film that didn't get into some, but you were going to change the strategy, but then decided not to. Sometimes it's just somebody's opinion.
Exactly.
They just didn't like your film.
And it's like, that's what I call the personal program at taste movie. So there's a film right now that we've got a few of them that are like that. So we're like, it could do well at some of these festivals here, but it's really dependent upon if the festival programmer engages with it and they, can relate or resonate. Some of them might not. And there are some festivals who program based upon, like just their taste and not the bigger picture. Sometimes they don't need to do that because the audience are going to like what they like. They're all different. So yeah, there is that kind of movie, which is, personal taste, idiosyncratic, really.
You also have a free ebook on your website called Film Festivals and Looking After Your Mental Health. Why don't we just dive into what made you want to write the book and why mental health?
Yeah. So it was around that time in 2013, 2014, I noticed filmmakers having quite a lot of anxiety about rejection and, in the no, and not getting the results they wanted. I feel like they had failed. And I looked at this in a bit of a bigger picture recently. I noticed that pattern was occurring still. And I noticed the issue that filmmakers were having was it would be a very kind of narrow approach to festivals, like top tier only, and just want to get into these festivals, and having quite a narrow approach and not thinking about themselves and preparing themselves mentally for this big journey ahead of them. They learn a lot through the journey, but they needed to be more grounded. I noticed that was occurring mainly in those that were very attached to their films. It was a big important thing for them and they'd have a lot of emotion with it and couldn't separate themselves from the film. And it was something that no one really talked about in the film festival world. There's a lot of helpful resources out there that talk about how to get onto festivals and what to do. But they don't talk much about grounding yourself or preparing yourself. Talk about preparing the film, but not so much about you. And that's very important for some filmmakers that need that extra help because it can be very tough and deflating if you're not prepared mentally and physically for what's ahead. One of my clients actually was a good example that made me want to write the book. So he had an investor that gave a lot of money to submission fees. And he went, I'm going to submit to all the ones I want and yours on your list, all the ones I want. And I was like, I said, well, be careful because they're all going to be no's. They're going to be no's. So prepare yourself for no's to come in. I was I can take it. I've got a thick skin. I was like, it's going to be a lot. So just, FYI. And then as they kept coming in, he started to get more and more attached to Film Freeway. He couldn't let it go. And then when the no's kept coming in, he just almost had a breakdown because he just had so many came in. He's like, I failed. And when you haven't failed, you got into festivals I said you get into and our strategy. And he said, no, I have failed because I wanted to get into a big one, to prove to my family that it was really worth me taking this route and doing filmmaking and not going down the corporate world. I have to prove this with a big festival. When you've got nothing to prove, you need to work more on yourself here and healing your relationship with the family. The film festivals won't fix that for you. I was like, wow, and that was not an extreme case, but there's other people too that have a similar thing where they're desperate to show people that with a big festival, they deserve an agent. They deserve, a manager. They deserve a literary agent, or they get to serve this and the other. This is all like it's a crowded market, a lot of crowded energies that can be quite, lower level. So the more grand you are and the more open you are to surprise along the way that'll be fun, the better it can be. There wasn't much of a toolbox for that in this in literature about festival strategy and about getting films to festivals. I mentioned it, in some of my ebooks. I didn't really go into detail. So I thought, now I'm going to go into detail because I'm going to provide with them some tools that can help them. That being several resources and books, and also techniques like emotional freedom technique, meditation, those kind of things to help them on the journey to stay grounded. Because as I say, it's a long process and you can learn a lot about yourself, but it can be stuff that can come up that you don't want to see or hear. You've got to be prepared for that because the festivals, are there to present that to you. You've got to find a way to cope with it.
No, I think that that's really important. And I think, like you were alluding to in the beginning, is the why. Why are you doing this? Why are you submitting? But also, I think a bigger thing is listening.
Yes.
I think a lot of filmmakers think they know it all. It's kind of like children,
Yes, I know that really well.
They think, yeah. And they're not listening to advice, and also here they are, somebody's coming to you, paying you for your services. And I feel like a little bit wasted a lot of money putting into film festivals that you said, no, you're going to get no's on, and they did it anyway. It's kind of like, and I think, but here's what I was going to say before I asked the question is that I think that people say rejection, but I just think it's more like a learning lesson, right?
Yeah.
If you don't try, you're never going to know.
Yes.
But through trying and perceived failure of something, a no or whatever, you're going to learn something to do next time. And it's about taking risks and putting yourself out there. And then when things don't go maybe your way, then you have to take a deep dive and look at yourself and go, okay, well, what could I have done better? Did somebody tell me information and I didn't listen? Maybe I need to slow down and really work on my skills, or whatever.
Exactly.
Any thoughts on that?
Exactly. No, you're spot on with all of that. They're kind of like festivals giving you little signs as to what you need to work on in yourself, and people around you need to also help you too by being realistic. So it's like you said earlier, people, and there are cases people don't listen when I'm working with them, and because they are very much secretly wanting that top tier. So where I say, look, if you are happy with this kind of level interior festival and you don't want, haven't got that secret thing let's just try and get it to another level. What can we do with the film to make it another level and go to top tier? There's nothing else you can do. Accept the fact, accept what's ahead of you. And if you keep secretly wanting that top tier and you won't get it, you're going to get disappointment and you'll miss things that are good coming your way. So we had a film where the filmmaker was, persistent. She really wanted this top tier festivals. And I said, look, it's not going to happen. You can try to sing as you want around the problems. The issue with the script is not going to change that in post-production. I mean, making it better performance will certainly help generally, but it's not going to raise it up into the bar. So you have to bear that in mind. And she was reason to kind of say, to take no for an answer. She kept pushing, and just going nowhere. I can take rejection, but then she was like, oh, it's, I'm the festival queen. All of my films, my short films, screen 50 or more festivals. I was like, this is different. You have to accept the change. This is a different kind of thing. You haven't failed. It's just different. Quality, not quantity with this film. Not the ones you want. But you're missing things here because these festivals are providing you with all this exciting new contacts and an award that's hard to win even at festivals that aren't as qualified, because you still got to compete against other films of a good quality. So it's really important to listen and to not miss good things coming your way if you're just fixated on the top tier.
Do you have 2 or 3 tips for filmmakers that want to submit to the top tiers? What do they need to do before shooting, prepping before to make their film a top tier film?
Yeah. The first thing, without a doubt, is going to be a really good script. One that is really well written, really well developed, isn't rushed when you see the draft, but is really tight. I've had one film that was 4 minutes have 42 drafts. So just don't worry about numbers again. Just make it where it needs to be. A script is a real key thing here. One that's innovative, one that's different, one that's challenging, and shakes a few feathers in the genre, and gets a few boundaries broken, is what they look for. So make a really strong script as a story that is different and fresh and not really seen before, with a really good cast and crew that can put that all together and make that magic, is really important. Now, it is true that you're going to need as well, for the top tier, good connections at those festivals to get it on this, right above the surface. PR is important, but that's more when you get into the festival. Not as much when you're trying to get it in. It's more like when you've got in as PR. But it's really important to have a good team around you that have those connections and put in front of the right people. Does not guarantee anything, but it just means it gets, a bit of a leg up. Is really important. I'd also say here as well is to not worry about time. When the film is finished, it's finished. If it's not finished in time for a certain deadline, do not rush the film for like the last minute deadline for South by Southwest. Don't do that at all. Just it's finished when it's finished is the key. It's as simple as that.
Now, do you feel that if you're submitting your film to festivals, you should be able to go to those festivals? Is that important?
Yes. So that goes back to goal setting, So if your goal is like networking, what kind of people do you want to network with? General filmmakers? Or is it more certain types of industry representatives, industry people? Why are you really going to festivals? What you want to get from that? If it's just purely like going there to present the film and exposure, then great. So yes, but if you're being more strategic and more targeted, look at who attends that festival. So for example, in the UK, there's a brilliant festival that's just finished called the Aesthetica Film Festival. Brilliant festival, loads and loads of things going on, massive industry presence, really important festival, really, really good festival. So, if your goal is networking, to meet people of a different level and tier of you that you want to help you, level up, then that's a good place to connect and build relationships and friendships. If it's more kind of like you just want to get it seen, you can go to all the festivals. So know what you want to achieve. I think you should always go to festivals that are local to you on your doorstep, because there's no reason why you shouldn't go, because you're there to with the film and do a Q&A and celebrate it. That's always, normal to me. If you're not in town at the same time, you can't obviously go to it, but have someone there to represent it and be there during the award ceremony and during the Q&A.
I love it. Any closing thoughts you'd like to share with the listeners?
Yeah. So my motto, as I said earlier, is know your film, know your festivals. I remember to always have that in the back of your mind. I need to know what my film is and what kind of festivals want my movie. And that's where the marriage will happen.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. It was brilliant.
Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to get out there and make a film. Reach out to your local filmmakers group to get involved and connect. Please subscribe to the show if you like it, and follow me on Instagram @TammyMcGarrow. Until we meet again, what's your story?